Are the biggest issues with Lake Winnebago.
Levels on Lake Winnebago could be changing to fight the overabundance of summertime algae.
The lakebed of Lake Winnebago has always been a source of mystery, but what unfolded recently has left researchers unsettled. The largest inland lake in Wisconsin, stretching across more than 130,000 acres, suddenly revealed signs of stress beneath its frozen surface. As winter tightened its grip and ice sheets thickened, massive cracks began to appear along the lakebed. These fractures were not the usual seasonal breaks caused by shifting ice. They were deeper, wider, and far more unpredictable. What emerged alarmed scientists because the cracks carried with them evidence of geological instability that had gone largely unnoticed until now. Before we start, smash the like and subscribe buttons for more updates. The scene was striking. Vast fissures extended across the frozen lake, running in long, jagged lines that seemed to defy the usual patterns of winter ice expansion. Beneath them, instruments recorded unsettling movements in the sediments and layers of the lakebed. Scientists stationed around Winnebago had initially assumed that the cracks were seasonal, but measurements quickly revealed otherwise. The bed itself appeared to be shifting, flexing under pressures that no one expected in such a geologically quiet region. What was once thought of as a stable and predictable lake suddenly became a focal point of scientific concern. Lake Winnebago is not just a recreational landmark. It is a natural reservoir with immense cultural and ecological value. Its waters feed into the Fox River, which in turn connects to Lake Michigan, making it part of a larger hydrological system in the Midwest. For decades, its stability had been taken for granted. The sudden emergence of cracks on the lakebed broke that sense of security. Scientists rushed to gather core samples and set up additional monitoring stations, realizing that the shifts in sediment layers might indicate subterranean movements linked to deeper geological forces. The ice fractures were, in effect, the surface manifestation of a deeper problem, one that hinted at movements in the earth below the water. The implications of the discovery stretched well beyond the cracks themselves. Geologists who specialize in the region had long considered Wisconsin a relatively quiet zone, far removed from tectonic plate boundaries or active volcanic regions. Yet the data from Winnebago suggested otherwise. The movement of sediments, the subtle tremors picked up by sensors, and the alignment of fissures all painted a picture of hidden stress. Something beneath the lake was moving, and the forces involved were strong enough to reshape the lakebed itself. For scientists, it raised urgent questions about the underlying geology of the state and whether such events could foreshadow larger, more disruptive shifts. As the investigation deepened, researchers began to uncover evidence that the lakebed might be responding to ancient fault lines buried far below the surface. Wisconsin is crisscrossed by old fractures in the bedrock, remnants of tectonic collisions that occurred hundreds of millions of years ago. Normally, these ancient scars remain dormant, silent reminders of past upheavals. But Lake Winnebago's cracking floor suggested that stress might be building again along some of those old lines. Even if not leading to a large earthquake, such activity could destabilize the sediments that support the massive body of water, with unpredictable outcomes for the surrounding region. The scientists who gathered around the lake worked tirelessly to understand the phenomenon, deploying seismographs, ground-penetrating radar, and satellite imaging to capture every detail of the shifts. What they saw emerging was a complex picture of stress redistribution beneath the lake. Pressure appeared to be rising from deep layers, pushing upward into the sediments. The cracks visible on the surface ice were only the most visible symptom of this unseen movement. Beneath the ice, mud and sand were shifting in ways that no one had documented before. It was as though the lakebed itself was breathing, expanding and contracting under forces building far below. The event struck a nerve because of Lake Winnebago's size and importance. This was not a small pond or isolated wetland. It was a lake large enough to influence weather patterns, aquatic ecosystems, and regional economies. Any instability in its structure could have cascading effects. The cracks signaled more than just geological change. They hinted at possible risks to water quality, fish habitats, and the balance of an ecosystem that supports everything from sturgeon to migratory birds. If the lakebed continued to shift, the sediments could release stored nutrients or contaminants, upsetting the delicate equilibrium that sustains life within and around the lake. What shocked scientists most was the speed with which these cracks appeared. In a matter of days, fissures stretched across miles of surface, prompting comparisons to icequake phenomena seen in polar regions. Yet unlike Arctic lakes, Winnebago was not expected to show such volatility. Researchers began considering whether shifts in climate and weather patterns might be playing a role. Warmer winters, fluctuating ice thickness, and changes in water levels could all contribute to stress within the lakebed. The cracks might therefore represent not just geological forces, but also the compounded impact of climate change on freshwater systems in the Midwest. The scientific community's reaction underscored the seriousness of the discovery. Experts from across disciplines converged on Wisconsin, bringing knowledge from geology, hydrology, climatology, and ecology to piece together what was happening. They knew that understanding Lake Winnebago's cracking bed could offer insights not only for the Midwest, but for freshwater lakes worldwide. If climate-driven stresses could awaken ancient geological scars, then many other lakes might face similar surprises. Winnebago had effectively become a natural laboratory, forcing scientists to confront the reality that hidden geological activity can resurface without warning. The emerging cracks also highlighted the delicate balance between human reliance on natural resources and the unpredictable behavior of the Earth itself. Communities around the lake depend on its water for drinking, farming, and industry. Recreational activities bring millions of dollars to the local economy each year. The sudden instability in the lakebed posed uncomfortable questions about long-term security. While scientists focused on the geological puzzles, residents watched nervously, aware that changes in the lake's stability could ripple outward to affect their lives in ways that science could not yet predict. Even within the scientific investigation, the scale of the cracks sparked debate. Some researchers argued that what was happening could be tied to glacial rebound, the slow rise of land once compressed by massive ice sheets thousands of years ago. Others pointed to more immediate causes, such as fluctuating water levels caused by heavy rainfall and drought cycles. Whatever the precise mechanism, the one clear fact was that the lakebed was no longer as stable as once believed. This recognition sent shockwaves through the scientific community, as it challenged long-held assumptions about the Midwest's geological calm. Lake Winnebago's situation also drew attention because of its role in regional hydrology. The lake feeds into systems that connect directly to Lake Michigan, meaning that changes within it could influence waters far beyond Wisconsin. The cracks, therefore, were not just a local anomaly, but a potential indicator of broader changes in interconnected freshwater networks. Scientists stressed the importance of studying the event in detail, not only to understand the local risks, but also to assess how such phenomena could alter water systems on a much larger scale. The timing of the cracks during winter added to the intrigue. Ice normally provides a stabilizing blanket across the lake, sealing in sediments and muting activity below. For fissures to open beneath this frozen shield, the forces involved had to be immense. Observers compared the sudden splitting to the cracking of glass under pressure, each fracture signaling strain that had built over time. The sound alone, described as thunder rolling beneath the ice, startled those who witnessed it. These auditory cues reinforced the notion that something extraordinary was occurring, something that extended far beyond normal seasonal processes. Each passing day seemed to bring new revelations. Instruments revealed shifts in pressure and temperature along the cracks, suggesting that water and sediments were moving in unexpected ways. Some areas of the lake bed even showed signs of uplift, as if parts of the ground were rising from below. This was especially concerning because it hinted at the presence of forces still active beneath the surface. For geologists, the combination of subsidence and uplift within the same lakebed was highly unusual, raising more questions than answers about what was driving the changes. The sheer unpredictability of the cracks forced scientists to reconsider how they monitor large lakes. Traditional methods had focused on surface water, ice thickness, and shoreline erosion. But the Lake Winnebago event highlighted the importance of looking deeper, beneath the sediments, to uncover the hidden movements shaping these massive bodies of water. In doing so, researchers realized they were standing at the frontier of a new field of inquiry, the study of hidden tectonic and climatic interactions beneath freshwater systems. The lake had revealed itself as a dynamic entity, capable of surprising even the most seasoned experts. For those working on the front lines of the research, the cracks were both unsettling and exhilarating. On the one hand, they pointed to a potential risk, a reminder that no environment is ever truly stable. On the other, they offered a rare opportunity to observe geological processes unfolding in real time. Scientists often work with data from the distant past, reconstructing histories through rock layers and fossils. Here, however, they had a living example of change happening before their eyes, a chance to watch and learn as the Earth reshaped one of its Great Lakes. The importance of Lake Winnebago's cracking bed was magnified by its cultural and historical significance. For centuries, indigenous peoples have relied on the lake for food, transportation, and spiritual connection. Its sturgeon population, one of the largest in the world, has been central to regional traditions. Any disturbance to the lake's bed threatened not just ecological balance, but also cultural heritage. Scientists were acutely aware that their work was not merely academic, but tied directly to communities whose lives and identities were bound to the lake. The cracks also underscored the interconnectedness of natural systems. What appeared at first as lines on ice revealed itself to be the product of multiple forces: geological, hydrological, and climatic, interacting in complex ways. It was a reminder that no single factor could explain the phenomenon. Rather, it was the convergence of ancient tectonic scars, modern climate shifts, and sediment dynamics that had conspired to reshape the lakebed. This complexity both fascinated and frustrated researchers, who knew that solving the puzzle would require interdisciplinary collaboration and perhaps years of study. As the investigation unfolded, one theme became clear: the Earth retains the power to surprise, even in places long considered stable and well understood. Lake Winnebago had been mapped, measured, and studied for decades, yet its cracking bed revealed dimensions that had gone unnoticed. This revelation served as a humbling reminder of nature's unpredictability. For the scientists, it reinforced the need for constant vigilance, for never assuming that stability in the past guarantees stability in the future. The lake had spoken, and its message was unmistakable. There is still much to learn about the hidden forces shaping our world. What unfolded beneath Lake Winnebago did more than fracture a frozen surface. It reshaped the way scientists view freshwater environments. The sheer strangeness of the event demanded a deeper dive into the forces that might be acting silently below. With the cracks stretching wide and long across the lakebed, researchers began to realize that this was not simply a regional curiosity, but a phenomenon that could have far-reaching consequences for understanding geological and hydrological systems in mid-continental regions. Every fissure carved into the icy expanse seemed to carry within it the story of pressures rising from the unseen world beneath, and deciphering that story became a priority for every expert watching the lake. The lake's very size amplified the urgency. A body of water covering such vast territory does not react to minor shifts lightly. If something was strong enough to create fractures across its bed, then that same force could potentially alter its hydrodynamics, redirect underground water channels, or even reshape its basin over time. Scientists, geophysicists, and climatologists alike began speaking of Lake Winnebago not just as a lake, but as a living system under strain. Its response to these forces had the potential to create ripples across both natural ecosystems and human settlements surrounding it. The cracks also opened a window into how delicate sediments beneath lakes store and release energy. Unlike bedrock, which resists until fractures burst violently, sediments shift, compress, and ooze under pressure. This behavior makes them difficult to monitor because changes happen subtly before they reveal themselves dramatically at the surface. At Winnebago, this invisible prelude may have been happening for years, even decades, before the sudden, audible cracking caught human attention. Instruments now showed that the sediments were rearranging themselves in ways that suggested the buildup of stresses from multiple sources: hydrological loads, underground pressures, and even residual glacial rebound continuing long after the Ice Age. This concept of glacial legacy became a fascinating part of the scientific inquiry. Much of Wisconsin owes its landscape to the retreat of massive ice sheets thousands of years ago. Those glaciers not only carved out valleys and lakes, but they also pressed down the land with unimaginable weight. When they melted and retreated, the crust began to rebound upward, a process still ongoing today. Scientists speculated that the cracking bed of Lake Winnebago might be linked to these lingering adjustments in the Earth's crust. If true, the event would provide a rare opportunity to witness glacial legacy in real time, an unfolding geological consequence of an epoch long past but still alive beneath the region's surface. The presence of water adds a critical layer to this narrative. Unlike dry land where cracks can form and stabilize, a lakebed operates under constant hydrostatic pressure. The immense weight of the water above interacts with sediments below, pressing them together while also finding pathways through even the smallest fissures. Once cracks formed in Winnebago's lakebed, water could flow into those spaces, eroding, softening, and expanding the fractures. This feedback loop between water and sediment magnified the instability. Scientists warned that once such a process begins, predicting its trajectory becomes incredibly difficult, because water is a relentless sculptor of landscapes. The biological implications of such shifts could not be ignored. Lake Winnebago is famous for its sturgeon population, a keystone species that thrives on the lakebed's rich ecosystem. If the sediments were disturbed significantly, the sturgeon's spawning grounds could be altered or destroyed. The cracks might destabilize the intricate layering of sediment where eggs are laid and young fish develop. What begins as a geological disruption, therefore, could cascade into ecological upheaval, potentially threatening one of the most iconic fish populations in North America. The shock that scientists felt was not just geological, it was ecological, cultural, and economic all at once. Adding to the complexity was the timing of the event. The cracks appeared in the heart of winter, when ice should have acted as a stabilizing cover. Instead, the ice fractured violently, echoing across the frozen surface in cracks that could be seen and heard for miles. This defiance of seasonal expectations unsettled scientists because it meant that whatever forces were at work were powerful enough to override the natural stability of winter ice. Observers described the phenomenon as both mesmerizing and terrifying, a sudden reminder that the ground beneath us, even when covered by miles of water, remains alive and capable of startling shifts. As instruments collected data, researchers noticed patterns of energy release reminiscent of seismic activity. While not earthquakes in the traditional sense, the small tremors associated with the cracking lakebed suggested microseismic events tied to the shifting sediments. For a region not commonly associated with seismicity, this was a jarring revelation. If sediments beneath Lake Winnebago were capable of generating detectable tremors, then perhaps the crust beneath Wisconsin held more secrets than previously believed. These findings raised the possibility that hidden fault lines, long buried and dormant, might still be subtly active. The scale of the cracks also prompted questions about whether human activity might be contributing to the phenomenon. Wisconsin, like much of the Midwest, relies heavily on groundwater pumping for agriculture and municipal needs. Over time, this extraction can alter underground pressures, subtly changing how sediments behave beneath large bodies of water. If the equilibrium beneath Lake Winnebago had been altered by decades of groundwater management, then the cracks might be a symptom of human influence on natural systems. Though no definitive link had been made, the possibility sparked new debates about the interconnectedness of human resource use and geological stability. Beyond groundwater, climate variability stood as a likely contributor. Warmer winters meant thinner ice in some years, followed by thicker accumulations during sudden cold snaps. These fluctuations created stress patterns far different from those of earlier decades. The lake's hydrology itself had been shifting, with heavier rainfalls feeding into it some years, followed by drought-driven drawdowns. Such swings in water level altered the pressures exerted on the sediments below. In this context, the cracks became a vivid marker of how lakes, far from being static, respond dynamically to climate shifts, sometimes with dramatic consequences. The psychological impact on surrounding communities was profound. For generations, Lake Winnebago had been considered a stable presence, a fixture of the landscape that people could count on. To see its bed splitting apart introduced an unsettling sense of vulnerability. Ice fishing, snowmobiling, and winter festivals all rely on the assumption of solid ice, yet the sudden fractures forced residents to reevaluate their safety. The cracks symbolize not only geological change, but also the fragility of traditions and livelihoods built around the lake. This cultural unease mirrored the scientific alarm, amplifying the sense of urgency surrounding the event. As scientists delved deeper into the mystery, they began considering whether similar phenomena might be occurring in other lakes, unnoticed because of less monitoring. Winnebago's size and prominence made its cracks visible, but smaller lakes scattered across glaciated terrain might also be experiencing hidden shifts. If so, the implications for freshwater systems across North America could be vast. Researchers started advocating for new monitoring networks, warning that the lesson from Winnebago was clear. Beneath the calm surface of lakes lies a restless world still capable of surprising us. If you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, leave your comments below and tell us, what are your thoughts on Lake Winnebago's cracking lake bed and shocking discovery? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching and see you next time.